The Public Works Commission is conducting this meeting March 12th, 2025 at exactly 4 p.m. Eastern on the Zoom platform and in person. This meeting is being recorded and will be available for later viewing on the town's website. We have everyone here, so I don't need a motion here. So I, Sven Weber, hereby call this meeting to order. First one is review and approval of minutes from February 12th. Everyone had a chance to read it? Any comments? Observations? No? Do I have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve.
A second.
All in favor? Aye, unanimously approved. Thank you. Next one is a review of the calendar. Alan?
Sure, so we are sort of looking at April 9th as the next regularly scheduled meeting. Couple things of note for then will be town meeting prep. By that point, all articles will be finalized through having gone through the moderator and council with the right language and verbiage. There may be a few items that we didn't prepare, but maybe of importance to the commission. So we'll be flagging those things, you know, when we get a little bit more information. I do note, now you're all familiar with the town meeting schedule. You know, I didn't include it in the packet, but you know, take a look at that. It gives you the various hearings and opportunities to kind of key into some key activities between now and then.
When is our hearing for our stuff?
I don't have that in front of me right now.
I think it was quite late in the
Yeah,
process.
I'll confirm that, and send an email sort of reminder, just noting once I hear from, you know, the moderator and the, you know, FinCom where we're gonna, fit. The other issue, the petition for the improvements in the private way of Darton and Dover Street. A lot of work's gone into preparing a design concept and a probable cost estimate. And we are now in a position where we have enough information where we can start sort of bringing that to the neighborhood. There is an article that we proposed for town meeting for borrowing authorization relating to that project. It's not insignificant. So I'm going to be working with engineering to get notice out to the neighborhood as far as the hearing that we'd like to have in April with some information. So, and we may even have a meeting, informational meeting that's not for the commission, but with staff in the neighborhood so they can get their arms around what is it that's, you know, on the table with the hopes that we have a hearing and then, you know, potentially the assessment of a betterment with a plan of work. So that's anticipated in April. And then in May, we have two rate hearings, water sewer rate hearing and the stormwater enterprise rate hearing. So those are the more meaty items. And then as things come up, we include them in the agenda based on time sensitivity. So that's where we stand.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right.
I'm gonna be gone for 3 weeks in April.
Which, are you making the 9th or not?
I don't think so. I can do it remote.
Okay,
Okay, because we can do, you know, it is always an option.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay, and you inform us on when our hearing is.
I will do
or-
that, yeah.
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 I'll
I'll include that in the.
My suspicion is that the stormwater hearing might be before our stormwater rate hearing.
Hmm.
So,
Okay, yep,
and you double check on that is when is the latest point we file the PowerPoints for the town meeting, because we want to have the rate, proposed rate in the PowerPoint for
Mhm.
town meeting.
Mhm.
That this is
Yeah.
somehow synchronized. If needed, if we need to push it a week.
yeah, if we can
earlier.
adjust the
Yeah.
schedule,
Okay.
we'll look at that and get that out.
Okay, and let's move to public comments, and these are public comments on topics that are not on the agenda. Comments will be limited to 15 minutes in total, with no more than 2 minutes allocated to any one speaker. The commission welcomes written comments at any time. If you recognize, please state your name and address and any relevant affiliation. Do we have public comments in the room? None? Anyone online? Doesn't look like that.
No.
Oh. I can slow down here.
Slow down. Keep going, keep rolling.
Next agenda item, commissioner comments. I just have one short update, Warner's Bond Task Force. The original scheduled public, what is it? It's not hearing. Public forum that was scheduled for March got pushed out to April 3rd, I think. So all three, so there were three kind of subgroups, dredging, dam removal, and more or less kind of continue whatever we did or not did in the last 20 years. And all of that is consolidated into one larger report. There was some additional work to be done that the things are comparable, that you really can compare the cost, the pros and the cons of the different things. So that took a little bit longer than originally expected. So there will be a public forum on April 3rd. And after that, if I get the timeline correctly, the group will come together again and then at a certain point make a recommendation in which direction this goes. So just FYI, nothing to decide here right now on that. Any other things from commissioners' observations? No? Okay. Now, next item is snow and ice removal from private ways. There, you saw there's it's not, how do we call it? Not a petition, but based on a public works policy, that there is a potential that Public Works is doing the snow blowing on four affordable housing developments, depending on a certain set of criteria. I think you saw that all in your material. Today is not a meeting for decision, given that Aaron McCluskey is on paternity leave. He got a new family member, and we definitely want to have him as the one responsible for snow blowing to look at that and provide us the input and the feedback we need. I nevertheless put Keith and everyone involved in here on the agenda, so that we get an early view, that we can make a fast decision once we get to the point and don't start from zero. So goal is 10, maximum 15 minutes, Keith.
Sure.
Yeah, you can move up here. Yeah, please, and please introduce the topic to the commission.
Very good. Let me just log on and share my screen.
And while Keith's doing that, again, the issue is we're following up a policy that was established by the Public Works Commission. Keith will mention that, but we also need to understand how does this fit within the policy and, you know, sort of broader implications. That's always what the commission's, you know, responsibility is.
Very good. I think I'm all set to go then. First, Keith Bergman, Chair of the Concord Municipal Affordable Housing Trust. I'm here with the representatives from two of the other housing groups, Ray Andrews from the Concord Housing Development Corporation and Rick Eifler from the Concord Housing Authority. And I know we've got other housing folks watching as well. All three of our boards have voted to request that the town provide snow and ice removal for Rothermel Place, which is a new private way open to the public, which will be providing access for the Assabet River Homes affordable housing development. Assabet is a 1 acre site owned by the CHDC. It's permitted as a planned residential development for 5 affordable housing units. Our PRD requires a 20-foot wide, 450-foot long access roadway with a hammerhead turnaround for fire apparatus. And our approved plan even shows where the plowed snow goes. And stay tuned, you get to see that. $2.5 million in local funds has been committed for the project, which will include 2 affordable rentals and 3 new ownership units. The rentals will be managed by the housing authorities. The ownership will be built by Habitat for Humanity. Those parties, we're all finalizing the land disposition agreement right now so that this project can move forward. Our goals are to have Habitat start building this construction season and to get the 2 affordable rental units counted on the subsidized housing inventory ASAP. And also to establish a condominium association, which the housing authority has volunteered to lead. The projected condo fee is of $300 per month, but it could become unaffordable if that fee had to bear the costs of snow and ice removal. So mindful that this commission had adopted a policy back in 2001 to provide such services for qualifying affordable housing developments, we're asking that Assabet's access road, Rothermel Place, be added to the town's list. The town adopted the authorizing state statute in 1964. You can only spend town funds for private ways. If you've done that, my read of the statute is that it's the roads as may be designated by the selectmen. So this appears to be step 1 in a 2-step process. Back in 1964, the Select Board endorsed the Public Works Commission's 8-point policy on standards to be met in order to have the private roads plowed. Then in 2001, that policy was amended to include affordable housing developments where units are deemed affordable by the town, so long as they met certain other criteria. And I'll go through how Rothermel Place meets all of those standards in just a moment. First, here's a list of what private ways open to the public are being plowed by the town. It's the one I found online and over on the left, and I put them in alphabetical order on the right. Nearly half are in White Pond. As disclosure, I live on White Avenue, one of the places listed there. This map is of White Pond, shows in yellow highlighter those public ways that are open to the public, which the town plows. On the north and south, nearly all the properties abutting the pond are privately owned. The public access to White Pond public beach is on Plainfield Road, shown in green highlighter. And the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail to the west will bring plenty of foot and bike traffic, let me tell you. This is what signage looks like installed by the town in our neighborhood. No outlet from Powder Mill Road onto Mitchell, for example. No pond access, pretty much in front of my house, and I didn't put it there, the town did. That's because the only access to the pond from the roadway is across people's private property. Numerous no parking signs. So let's follow that Bruce Freeman Rail Trail northward to Old Marlborough Road, right near the Assabet River. And that's where shown here is where the Assabet River Homes is going to be located. This is the approved planned residential development master plan that the planning board and the zoning board of appeals spent months with about a year ago. The project was put out to bid by CHDC, and Habitat is going to build the 3 new units. This shows how Rothermel Place meets all of your applicable criteria. At least 1 home every 500 feet. We've got 5 homes and 450 feet. 12-foot wide surface. Ours is 20 feet. Adequate place for the snow, as I say. Now you get to see it. Here's where the storage for the snow goes per our approved plan. Rothermill Place would be a public way open to the public as much as that standard applies. And might there be a sign that says no outlet? That seems to be an appropriate determination. Living at the end of White Avenue, we get a lot of daily traffic, in particular during the summer. Even some vehicular traffic, but that they give up and they either go over to Plainfield Road or they go to Walden. And the public access, by the way, to the abutting 6-acre Assabet River Bluff conservation land, that public access right now is on the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail. There's been no access point made yet on Upland Road. So, we'll construct and maintain the roadway to the public works standards. That's what our PRD requires. The entities will sign the hold harmless agreements that you may require. And as I've said, all 5 of the units will be affordable at 80% of area median income and countable, all 5, on the subsidized housing inventory. So that's the pitch, and be glad to answer any questions.
Could you say some words around the timeline?
The timeline is within the next month. We want a land development agreement signed among the housing authority, the trust. The trust is going to be holding a mortgage of $1.3 million on the project, and that mortgage gets released once all 5 deed restrictions are put into place. So we want the construction to start in the season for the new units. We want the housing authority to take over, to have an existing 2-family structure transferred to it, for them to operate 2 affordable units. And not inconsequentially, we are working hard to get those 2 rental units counted on the SHI. You may have read in the paper, we're getting perilously close to 10%. We thought we're at 16 with 2 40Bs, but the 40B, once approved, doesn't stay on the list if they don't build a building permit within a year. That's where Novo is. Novo is going to fall off. The ZBA may not be able to approve the other 40B by that drop dead date. April 16th is when Novo leaves. And we would like to be able to get 2 units counted because we'll be at 10.001%, which has no margin for error. If we lose 1 state group home on our inventory, and we don't have any control over that.
Okay, so, and from a process perspective, so this would be step 1, as this is a policy of Public Works Commission. And then for determining if this is public roads, was that what you said is on Massachusetts general law, that you think that needs then to be designated by the selectmen in that way, or how do you read that?
I think it's I think your internal procedures will tell you what the answer is. That if you had to go back to the select board every time you added a street since 1964, then you'd have to go again. If you've never been to the select board back to the select board because the policy that they approved and gave you to go out and implement meets the standard of the statute as saying as designated by the select board.
Yeah.
So that's
All right,
between you and them and town council.
we get clarification on that. Okay.
So,
Questions?
so we're waiting for input from Aaron, is that?
Yes.
Is that part of it?
Yeah, so we have, if you look at the policy, we have more or less So for affordable in town, if you look at number, yeah, I guess this here somewhere. So it says we have to check against 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 of the policy. Which is what he pointed out on his chart, is one is home every 500 feet. That seems to be okay. The pre-1955 layout, that's the whole White Pond area more or less, so that doesn't apply for us. And I think White Pond as a comparison, White Pond is White Pond, so it's a little thingy. So then 3 is where the road surface is at a width of at least 12 feet. This is 20 feet. So where we need input, where there is an adequate and safe place for the snow to go within the way, and that's specifically when we come with our large equipment. That this is, say, feasible when you come with the big truck where to go, because some of these things show it somewhere where cars might be parked, so we have to look at that. Open to the public, which is a complete own discussion, which we can touch on a little bit if you want, and then is the road safe for the plow? Again, Aaron's input is important. And then the 7 point is hold harmless agreement, signed by the abutters. We hear there's a willingness to do that, but I don't know if we have a legal framework for that yet in place or not. So in the end, we need Aaron's input on 4 and 6, and we need to think about number 5. Is this a road open to the public? If I look at these, unless you have different view and what we need to check against the policy.
On number 5, I mean, you mentioned it would be open to the public, what would prevent it from being open to the public? It seems like it's a,
Human nature won't prevent it from being used.
Yeah.
Even if it were a private way, not open to the public.
Yeah.
That it's located, it will run sort of parallel to the Bruce Riemann rail trail, so that if your goal is to get into the conservation land, it would actually be faster for you to stay on the rail trail
yeah,
and just go in at the entrance point that's right near the bridge. If the public if someone wanted to take early morning walks and take the dog, those are things that happen.
Yeah.
People can park their cars on a private way open to the public. And it's in the White Pond area. We was gonna use a prop, which I'd like to over here. We even get parking permits for that the town issues, so that if I want to park on the street, I can do so. But so it's if it looks like it's open to the public and you're not preventing the public from using it, then it's open to the public.
Any other questions from the commissioners? Again, today is setting the stage and also providing feedback to Keith and others, and to be able to kind of respond to questions you might have. If nobody has right now. So,
And
yeah, the first commissioners, or are you for?
on the screen.
Liz Rust. has-
Yeah, but first, let me first as a commissioner again, and then we. Well, Liz, also, you're speaking for one of the authorities here?
So I'm an affordable housing consultant, so I
Yes.
wanted to just report, I spoke with Elizabeth Hughes about, Alan mentioned what kind of precedent it was. So we reviewed all of the affordable housing developments, condominium developments in town to see how this might apply to any other developments. And we found that there were no other developments that this would apply to. In fact, this was the 2001 policy was done, in our opinion, right before the Elm Brook condominium development, which you do plow. And that's the only applicable 100% affordable condominium development. All the other affordable housing developments have some differences that wouldn't meet the criteria. So there's no other precedent that you would have to go back and address with existing developments.
Thank you. Thank you. So on open to the public, so I understand you correctly, there is no kind of connection to the land or to a trail through the street or anything?
I can
You're saying-
comment on that also, that
Okay.
the land on either side of the road is owned by the condominium, so it's not public land. So there's no intention for the public to access the open space through this road.
Okay, thank you. And you mentioned parking on the street. I don't think there's a way to park on the street or,
It would be highly discouraged.
yes, okay.
Well, yeah, it doesn't mean they won't do it.
I think
So,
that it would
I
be
just-
highly discouraged.
Okay,
Yeah. Well, and on White Avenue, we discourage it with signs the town puts up that says parking permit only.
okay. Did you have a question? Or
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
So my question
Name
is,
and-
that, I'm Isabel Bailey, 121 Everett Street, on the Pollinator Health Advisory Committee. And in the discussion about the Assabet Trail, which is going to have an all mobility access trail, the question was where those people can park. And it came up with whether they might be able to park at the condominium and access the trail from there, because there is no other, at this point, there's no other way to access.
Yeah. Yeah, see,
Yeah.
and I would say Upland Road.
Yeah, no, I think that
Or you
the
create
idea was,
parking on the site.
Right,
Yeah, the deal was you create parking on the 6 acre site
okay,
and take some trees down.
so not parking here, but somewhere else?
So
Yeah.
the parking for the,
so the trail would be
for
elsewhere.
the parking for the conservation land, I'm answering, would be on the conservation land.
well, I think specifically, if I could, the parking for the all accessible trail that's being discussed, I think that Upland Road, there's a room for a couple of cars there, would be the best place, though I know that there are some discussions that haven't progressed to completion yet on that.
Rich Healy, 347 Lexington Road, speaking for the Concord Housing Foundation. We very much want to see the town plow this. The town has put a lot of money into it. It's one of the few developments in the last 10 years. But that will be homeowner affordable essentially. And we're very worried that this gets into the ground this construction season. So I understand the commission needs to make the decision with full information. I'm here to say that if it's necessary, I have a vote from the foundation that we would cover up to $5,000 for snow plowing for the first 3 years for the condominium residents for their share until they can work out an arrangement, possibly even including plowing it themselves. But we very much want to see this go forward this year. We hope the commission will accept the street, and we're willing to help with the transition. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, concerns?
What's the process then? What's the next
So
step?
the next step is we need to have Aaron checking 4 and 6. We need to have an understanding of, is this open to the public, which is, in my view, is a very unfortunate wording of that policy, because there's no kind of necessary legal definition. There's definitions around what the access road is and the definitions around other things. But open to the public could be range from let's say it, glorified driveway which is open to everyone to a broad street that is private, or things like you have on White Pond where people drive through. They intuitively, this is really sitting somewhere on a corner, so we have to find an understanding what we mean with that. And then the whole harmless agreement, we need to check if the town has some kind of a,
Yeah, Dave, we haven't had a lot of time staff to understand this. I know the precedent's there and we just want to make sure that we're making the right. We give you guidance and just haven't
Yeah.
had the real due diligence yet to.
and the
you know.
the whole harmless agreement is, if you look is where the parking is here. You have to assume like cars parked in the parking spots, and then you come with a big snow truck. Now, what happens if there's some damage there? Yeah. So,
I'm assuming that this applicant would have to sign the same agreement that everyone else who's getting the service has already signed. So I'm not sure what that problem is.
well, depending on how old it is, so we find all the time very old things in town that need to be brought up legally to the what needs to be done. So we have to look at that. So these are the things we have to check. I think the one with the biggest interpretation is most likely the one with open to the public. So if Aaron comes back, that's absolutely no problem to do this with the equipment, absolutely. Safe space for the snow, and then it comes back more or less to the interpretation of number 5.
Yeah.
To be
And also-
slightly open.
And it's so important what Liz was volunteering, which it's unique and that's, we want to know that. I mean, that's good information. We just haven't had a chance to
Yeah.
really,
Yeah.
proof that out.
And since there may have been only one, I guess what I would say, what's not unique among affordable housing developments is this project. This is what an affordable housing project looks like. And it's what one with all affordable units looks like. So if you were to find that you didn't mean what you said, and the people who were here in 2001, that you would support affordable housing projects by providing this service, I think you might want to rethink that and say, we will support affordable housing.
Yeah, I think I'm more looking at this. What does the policy say? And you did the right points pointing it out, and had this good chart. I think is what we might think, what we had on other issues on what was the sewer connections or whatever to houses, where we felt that the existing policy is ambiguous. We make a decision based on an existing policy. And then single out a point that, say, in this case, we could single out a 0.5 and say is,
Right.
let's put the policy after that decision under review to make it kind of more precise going forward, that we don't have, again, like 5 or 10 years down the road, commissioners again sitting around the table and saying, what does it mean? Yeah, I think that could be one way to think about it when we come to the point of a decision, but I think right now, this is the policy in place. We have to make our decision based on the policy in place.
I guess on
Yeah.
the public access, I'm thinking it very simplistically. You say it's gonna be open. If there's no gate there, there's no sign there that says it's not open to the public, and if our motion says we will plow and these are the conditions, and one of the conditions is it needs to remain open to the public. Is there something more we need to do?
Okay, that's what we have to
Okay.
think about is,
Yeah.
is this enough? Is there more? Is there less? Yeah,
Okay.
this is again, early view. And when Aaron comes back and gives us the view and it's the only thing standing.
Yep.
We can focus on this. If it says, if he says, there's no way he can plow with his equipment.
Yep.
Then we might have a different,
Yeah.
yeah, so right now, I don't want to go too much in speculation land what the outcome
And
is.
just to be clear on that, the planning board and the zoning board of appeals relied on staff input from all the town departments, including this one, and including the fire department, in putting the conditions into the pages and pages and pages of conditions And so that the owner of the property can use their property and develop it as an affordable housing site. And that includes maintaining a roadway to your standards. So I guess I would be shocked, I would be certainly disappointed at a minimum to find out that the Public Works recommendations, which led to the issuance of this planned residential development in the first place, don't hold up upon your review of snowplow.
I just want to offer qualification on that. Staff and engineering division primarily is involved with those reviews, and oftentimes when it's private, they're looking at the potential impact in the public area. In this particular case, I'm not sure there was consideration of, oh, and the town will be maintaining or plowing. I mean, it's the equipment, you know, what was really, you know, how was it vetted? I would argue it wasn't considered something because we don't typically plow new private ways.
Yeah.
And so that's a nuance.
I think it's more than that. I think it's that the town staff did not make anyone aware of your policy in 2001 when that was being reviewed, because it came as a shock to the staff when someone found it a week ago.
Which was, yeah, part of the flag is I found it.
I thought it had to be someone with a long memory.
And a water sewer superintendent found
Yeah,
it.
Okay, all right, I think there's something to chew on. We need to get the information. Thank you
Thank
for,
you. And with all the time that you're spending on the big stuff you're doing, thank you so much for taking the time on this.
Thank you.
thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys.
And Aaron will be here in April.
Oh, yeah, I'll be back. Again, and then we'll be able to provide a little bit more insight, information, background. Again, it's hard to,
Yeah, I'm not a snow plower, but that doesn't look easy.
these are the things we just.
Thank you.
It does not look easy.
Luckily, no one's living there yet, and it's March. So there's no impending snowstorm.
Okay. So. Guardrail specification.
Okay, I will introduce Justin Richardson, and Steve, you're gonna come up as well? Steve Dukran, town engineer, Justin Richardson, assistant town engineer. We will I'll get the presentation up. Justin, are you gonna take the lead on this? Yes. So let me just give a little background while I'm finding this.
Sure, so basically we wanted to inform the commission that in the past, the engineering division has typically specified weathering steel guardrail around town with wooden posts as our preferred, you know, beam and guardrail system. But moving forward, we would like to use galvanized steel for the beam as well as the posts. And that's basically to increase protection, longevity of the guardrail and be more cost effective. So our existing standard, which is detailed here, yeah, you can just go to the second page.
Yeah.
Lists galvanized steel and weathering steel as options for the guardrail system. This has wood posts, and that's the majority of the system in town. We also do have some like older cable systems, and then some freestanding posts, concrete, stuff like that. But this is our existing standard that we follow. You can go to the next slide. And as it's set up there is we have 6.35 miles of guardrail in town. Many of our existing guardrails are in extremely poor condition. Some of them are literally falling off the posts. And this is basically due to the material that we use and how fast it deteriorates. So if you want to go to the next slide. So basically, our guardrail basically protects vehicles from steep slopes roadside water bodies and movable objects. And it works together as a system, with the guardrail beam remaining rigid, which basically protects from an impact and translates load to the posts and other beams. I just read that one out loud because that one's tough to memorize. As you can see, the images show that, there's obviously a lot of failures which are in the joints, rotted posts, and then bolts, other hardware equipment as well. It's basically estimated that the majority of our guardrail system, is not adequate for essentially stopping the vehicle. And at our current replacement rate, which is approximately 1,200 linear feet, which is 0.23 miles if you want to do the calculation. We aren't keeping up with with how fast the guardrail is deteriorating. So, we want to move forward, with a new standard that's gonna basically, it's gonna be cheaper and it's gonna last longer. So moving forward, as you can see, the weathering steel beam rusts quickly, and it basically has a life expectancy that's up to 20 years less than a galvanized system. The Federal Highway Association no longer, basically they don't, allow, or not allow, because they don't really govern, but they don't recommend, weathering steel in salty environments, or essentially when there's temperatures and climate that rain regularly. There's other studies that say more than 8 inches, per year, so. Also, Mass Highway is basically moved away from weathering steel. They don't even list it on their bid items anymore. Manufacturing of weathering steel, it's approximately 20% more expensive than galvanized for the whole system. And then obviously, we also have end treatments for guardrail systems, which basically prevent vehicles from hitting the ends of the guardrail, because that's the most dangerous piece of it. And those, to be rated for the traveling speed we have, they don't even come in weathering steel anymore. So, additionally, the wood posts that we've seen, they tend to rot prematurely or crack when they're pounded into the ground. Typical guardrail installation, just, they basically pound each post in at, depending on the spacing, TL2, which is for like lower speed rails. It's every 12 foot 6 inches, and that's how they attach each piece. So there'll be a post, every 12 feet. So additionally, with the pounding of the posts, the rectangular posts, they have a larger footprint. So when they're pounded, there's more disturbance to the ground. The steel posts, they're essentially an I-beam, so they don't put as much pressure on the ground when you're pounding them. So
We've had an issue with our water infrastructure, near some of the, it's not unusual to have sensitive infrastructure that could be affected by that pounding, and we've seen it in Concord.
gas mains, other pressure systems.
Yeah.
So this is the MassDOT preferred post that we would like to incorporate into our designs. And obviously it's a galvanized system. It also has composite blocks, or MassDOT still does allow timber blocks in between the rail and the post. We would, use it either depending on cost and how and where it's located. So essentially, this will result in better protection, longer life, and be more cost effective for our guardrail replacement projects. And here's a picture of a more weathered galvanized steel beam and post system, just in closing. So
How old is that photo?
I took it,
I mean, I should say, how
3
old
days
is the
ago.
rail?
3 days ago.
The question should be, how old is the rail in that
I'm
photo?
not sure, it's in Sudbury.
Okay,
Because we don't use these systems in Concord, so I took one on my drive-in.
okay, so are they pretty shiny?
To start
they're
with, they will be a little shiny, yes, like more shiny than, you know, your typical rail like it's shown here.
Okay, now, this isn't even on your options, but I'm from Franconia,
Sure,
and through the notch, we have wooden rails. They're very pretty.
yes.
If galvanized steel doesn't last long, is it, are wooden rails even remotely okay? I mean, and Franconia notch gets more than 8 inches.
Yep.
It's a pretty heavy travel area. I mean, it's,
Yes, I hike there regularly. They do back those with steel. It is more, it's expensive because wood is typically more expensive. I think the purpose and what we're trying to do is because essentially we're not keeping up with our program. So we're trying to keep it as cost effective and long lasting as possible. So, you know, while it may be possible, it doesn't necessarily,
cost effective for it.
it's not cost effective.
We're not we're very pretty, but we're not a national park. Although we kind of are in some
Yeah.
ways.
Yeah.
All right.
Are you coming to tell us, I mean, this seems very sensible and like a very reasonable thing to do, but are there impediments to changing your system?
We don't see any impediments, it's just gonna be a change.
Okay.
So we're kind of putting it out in the public, just making people aware that going forward, this is how we're going to approach our guardrail program.
I just want to mention, a year ago, maybe we had an end hit on Lowell Road, and we had to use a current crash tested, and so we ended up putting one galvanized steel. You'll see it if you drive by.
Yes.
So if you haven't seen it, then it's not noticeable.
It is about safety, you know, that's one of the challenges we have. This is a safety feature that we've recognized we need to address and just. keeping
Well,
up.
there was someone injured in that
Yeah.
crash, like it was very
Yes.
bad.
Mhm.
It was
Yeah.
a very serious accident that may have been prevented with better guardrails, maybe.
Possibly.
Did I read this wrong? That,
He-
I'm so sorry, John. It is none of my view.
I was gonna say what you just said, and safety should be number one, so this is, it sounds like a safer solution, I believe it's a safer solution. Two, also, if federal highway doesn't recommend the use of weathered steel, and if MassDOT doesn't specify it anymore, it just adds credibility to what we're using. If there was an accident and somebody questioned, why didn't you use galvanized steel? When the feds and the state don't use it, why aren't you using it? That helps also. I'm just wondering, is there any issue with using this in a historic district?
Yeah. That was gonna be my
That's
question.
right.
That was
Is
my
that
question.
right? Does that require some other type of review?
We do not know.
Do we wanna ask the question?
You always hesitate to ask that question, but
You know, aesthetics are very important to our town character and
I heard safety is rated higher than aesthetics.
I agree. But I don't know if I don't know if there's a process to get approval to do this in the historic district if previously it wasn't allowed.
Well, we always,
Real do you have in the historic district?
yeah, we always try to understand exactly what the district's commission has jurisdiction over. It gets to a point where that authority is vague. Typically, most commissions and other municipalities, it's about the buildings, the facades and so on. And anything within the roadway, pretty much out of their authority. In this town, it's a mix.
Yes.
Sometimes applies, sometimes it doesn't. But we always don't like asking the question because then you go down a road that doesn't have any guardrails or proper guardrails.
Well, I'm
Do you
thinking of
know-
like on Monument Street by the bridge, by the park. I'm assuming, I can't, I'm trying to picture it. If we have guardrails going to the bridge on either side of the bridge before you get to the bridge, right? There in the park. And I would bet that the state, that the park system would much rather have something a little bit more toned down than a bright.
So do we know how many miles are in the historic district?
No, I can, so we also need to do a full guardrail asset plan to determine that. One of the options that we do have, which is basically powder coating the galvanized metal. But that's also extremely expensive. It adds like 2.5 times the cost to the rail, so,
And you'll also see that,
Cost of the
yeah.
rail.
yeah, like, if it costs $40 a linear foot, it's now 80 feet per linear foot. So,
and you also have some of that up in Franconia and all.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of that area, I mean, and kind of deferring to other standards by other agencies, what does the National Park Service allow along their roadways? Maybe a higher cost, but in maybe some areas, that might be what we should be looking at, even though it is a higher cost. And when we can defer to, well, National Park Service uses this along their parkways, their roadways, so. I'm not saying we should do that, I'm saying it may be an option we at least need to have an answer to.
Okay, and at the same time, maybe we can ask them if they would contribute to
Yes,
it, yeah.
I agree.
So I think I have what you say, it's like, this, you're proposing something that is safer, lasts longer, and is cheaper. And I think as the current budget discussions in town show us that we can't continue the path, that we do something that is more expensive, doesn't last long,
Let's say.
and is less safe. It's just, so I think perhaps from where we are with the complexity of Concord, to say, all right, if it's outside of historic district and national park, I think this is, from my perspective, a no-brainer.
Mhm.
Yeah,
I'd agree with that.
period.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
if it's falls into the historic district, we might have to have some synchronization what that means. But we have to point out is to get exactly here's, it's cheaper, lasts longer, and is safer. And one of the things, my personal view is that we have a lot of our budget problems are because we have all these extra little sausages we are doing and special recipes that drive the cost, but I'm not sure about the authority here in the historic district if we run foul on something. That's the only thing. Outside of historic district, go ahead, from my perspective, do it. It's a
I would say
no-brainer.
do it everywhere. I mean, honestly, I just, this was so sensible. I can't imagine anyone arguing
What's-
against it.
What's the decision for us right here?
We are not even proposing a decision. We're informing you of a direction.
Oh, okay.
And we were going to be coming back, and we owe you, and we know this, but with a lot of transition and staffing, a design and construction standard update. We know that. We've actually got it probably 75% done on the engineering, so we sort of include this for formal approval, and we had water sewer that we're also working on and some stormwater. So there isn't a decision, it's more information at this point.
We don't have to
And
decide anything today.
we are gonna go out to bid. We need to move on this. We did want to sort of have a vetting. We kind of appreciate the input and concepts. But, you know, I think it's important to understand that the commission is ultimately responsible for the right of way and the safety issues,
Right.
not the historic district.
Yeah.
And we have fallen behind, and we're informing the commission that we are behind on that charge that is in your authority. So we're trying to, do what we can to catch up.
So eventually will we have to vote on?
Yeah, we'll have, with the design standards, we'd include that.
Yeah, as of right now, with our current design standard, we're allowed to use galvanized rail, it says right on it, we're just.
Yep.
Publicly saying, we're now, instead of going with weathering steel, we're now gonna start bidding galvanized.
The current standards already allow this,
They allow the beam, yes.
the beam, but not the rail.
That is the rail, the beam and the rail, but the post is.
Or the
what's-
post.
The post is what we're also going with a galvanized post
Instead of the wooden ones or whatever they are now.
instead of a timber.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That makes sense.
Yeah.
we were
Getting back-
thinking that the aesthetic portion of it is mostly due to the rail.
Yeah.
And not necessarily the post, which is behind.
Getting back to the aesthetics, sorry, talk to this again. Safety is number one. That's why I said if National Park Service has a guardrail design that they find
We should look
safe
at
for
that.
their roadways. And if we're able to convince feds, let's say, because of the 250th, it might be worth putting some money into that wooden guardrail. Because so many people are gonna be coming here for the 250th. Maybe it's a way of getting some of those sensitive areas addressed with some cost assistance from others. I don't know how we'd go about doing that.
Yeah, probably the 250.
It's like 2 months away.
Yeah, when Elon putting the brake on some of the money.
They put a lot of money into Minuteman.
Oh,
Yes.
Put some money.
Yeah.
Yes, they have.
Yes. All right, you feel you have a guidance on what to do?
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah? Any other?
When you
questions from the
come-
public? Okay.
Are you gonna come back to us with an update on this?
We're gonna come back to you with a whole standards update, so it's not just gonna be guardrail.
Design and construction.
Would it be possible, because I'm assuming you have a map that you could tell us like. How much we actually have that could be, that's in the national park or it's in our historic district? I mean, it may be, end up being something like 200.
So you're talking like Liberty Street, Monument Street.
Yeah,
all
just
this,
what we
yeah.
actually have. We may not have that much, and
Would you consider Lowell Road as part of that too? Because
The
Lowell Road.
historic district, you can see in GIS.
Yeah, no, I know, but like, as far as national parks, I don't know if that's necessarily defined in.
Lowell
GIS.
roads. I shouldn't say that. It's like a highway. I'm thinking more Monument Street.
Okay.
But I mean, we should look at it, because
Yeah, well,
Lowell roads, it's, no,
Okay,
there's too much speed on there. On Monument Street, I'm thinking more.
Yeah.
For the park.
I like it cheaper, lasts longer and safer, absolutely.
Yeah, I
like
just,
that.
I don't want people screaming at us.
You know, people what?
People screaming at us, coming back going, how did you do this? You ruined the aesthetics of the town.
It's part of that challenge. The Concord way sometimes means things aren't getting done. Is the concern people. There's a lot of opinions and a lot of different interests, and this is, the horse by committee kind of thing.
Yeah.
So,
Okay,
Yeah, that comes back in seconds.
safety.
yeah, I know, I get,
Yeah.
I'm just,
All right,
you're not walking your
Thank
dog
you,
out
guys.
there.
thank you,
Yelling.
thank you.
It's such
Oh,
a-
I'm out there, I want
Steve is gonna stay here
It's just.
Thank you.
the water.
because the next one is roads program update. Mr. Dukran.
Well, let's bring out the man of the hour. Where is he?
I'm coming. Right here.
He was gonna jump right into it.
Now for the good news.
We still need to
Right,
pay money for it.
introduce, Joe Cormier is the, public works engineer. And he's presented, the roads program the last couple of years, I think,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So,
Yep,
welcome back, Joe.
And we did do a briefing a couple months ago.
Just gotta figure out how I can move my screen so I can bring this one up, You're running the show and you're,
And just to be clear, this is for if we do business as usual. This is a $2.5 million budget.
Correct.
This is not,
If,
And we-
if everything goes through like we're hoping,
yeah, then we
Okay.
can do more,
thank you,
just to clarify this. from
that's
the
great.
get-go.
It is Ellen. So yeah, this is just to go over the construction projects for this upcoming construction season.
Okay,
I'll touch upon the FY 26, FY 30 at the end. So these are some of the topics I want to go over. Again, this was presented in November, just the methodology of how we select streets and prioritize them. I'll touch upon the preservation and traditional reconstruction methods that we're gonna implement this year. Obviously present the projects and the streets that we're going to be implementing on. We're gonna go over the streets that didn't get done last year that got postponed to this year. And then the future projections of our pavement condition index of our road network. So this graph here, we've presented a couple of times before. But it's a good visualization of how we prioritize streets. So the top right graph here shows how a road deteriorates over time. So at the beginning of its life, it has a PCI of 100, and then it has varying degrees of deterioration rate until it deteriorates to a point where it can't be preserved or maintained, and you have to fully rehab it. So our method here to kind of touch upon all of the streets is to conduct base rehab on streets that are obviously beyond maintenance, but also touch upon streets that are in good condition and fair condition to maintain more roads at a higher PCI. So within this chart, there's treatment bands with their associated costs. So we try to treat roads that have a PCI or pavement condition index towards the bottom of those treatment bands before they deteriorate further and their maintenance cost increases. So you can see, like, at the beginning of its life, it's $3 to $8 a square yard to cost, and it increases beyond that. So we try to target those streets before they fall into the next consecutive more expensive repair cost. And it's more cost effective. We can treat more roads per year. So we have more roads in better condition, essentially. So another thing we kind of touch upon here is the histogram here. Like, yeah. So this kind of helps us visualize where we should be targeting these streets. Or where we should be targeting and allocating funding within these different treatment bands based on the number of miles that have those conditions, excuse me. So that's another way to visualize it, I guess, is with the histogram graph. So
Just before I go forward, Joe.
Yeah.
This, just want to explain, because this is very important, in understanding what we're doing now with the current program, as well as in the future program. You really want to hit the streets in the bottom of a group. Because so you might ask a question, so how come the street over here is really bad, but you're doing others of a similar, condition? It's because if you give it another year, it will just be as bad. But in another year, you'll have the money to do it. You follow that concept? Okay.
Yeah, so to kind of put all that information together, we have an asset management program, Street Logics, that we use that kind of analyzes this, breaks it down, and prioritizes those streets based on the available budget we have. There's obviously other considerations other than pavement condition, but like traffic volumes, the types of deterioration and utility needs. So now just to kind of go into the treatments that we plan on implementing this year, is similar to the ones that we implemented last year. We have fog sealing, which is more of a routine maintenance treatment that's applied to good roads, or roads that are in good condition. It's similar to like a driveway sealant that you put on, but it's made for the roads. It dries quicker. It retains it puts the oils back in the asphalt, keeps it flexible, and helps reduce cracking in the street. So that's something that's done fairly early on in the life of the pavement. It has low distresses, but it keeps the properties of a new asphalt for a longer period.
So we'd be doing that for Main Street for everything you paved last year?
Eventually, yeah.
Or not this year?
No.
Okay, so that's not that early.
This would be, no,
Okay,
typically it's done 4 to 5, 6 years down the road,
okay,
depending on the stresses that
Okay.
sees, because roads, it'll see varying, different roads see different rates of deterioration.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. So the next one here is crack sealing. This is something we do yearly. We've been doing this treatment for as long as I've been here, for 5 years. And it's to essentially to seal the cracks in the road itself. And this just keeps water out, so when it freezes, it doesn't pop the asphalt. It's a effective method, very low impact, and it's low cost. Then the third preservation treatment that we'll be doing is microsurfacing. This is done on roads that are a little bit more deteriorated, but might not necessarily be a candidate for repaving. This is good to fix like small imperfections in the road. It improves rideability. It creates a new wearing surface. It's a pretty uniform treatment when it's done. And then these are traditional reconstruction methods. We have a mill and overlay and our full depth reconstruction. The mill and overlay is for more minor to moderate surface deteriorations, potholing, cracking. This is where you remove the first 1.5 to 3 inches of asphalt and you repave that back in. You can fix some drainage issues, grading with this method. Obviously, it's a little bit more involved, more time consuming. It's a little more cost than your typical fog sealing or microsurfacing. And then we have full depth reconstruction. This is a full road box reconstruction, so a road that's completely deteriorated. So that includes the asphalt and the soils under it. So this comes in, you fully pulverize the road to a gravel state, regrade it, recompact it, and at the end you have a full reconstructed road. This is obviously the most costly treatment.
And Joe, I'm just gonna take this time to go back up to the histogram here. That's relative to those different kinds of treatments.
Yeah. So each treatment we apply to each one of those bands. So like base rehab, structural improvements, your preventative maintenance would be like your microsurfacing, and your routine maintenance would be your crack sealing, fog sealing. So these are the list of streets that we're proposing to do this year. We have an estimate put together. And believe that we have the budget to do these. Obviously, it's subject to the bids that we receive when it goes out to bid. But this is what we believe we can do this year. So with this list, we plan on presenting this to the abutting residents in the coming weeks, just to let them know what's going on, what we plan on doing. Give them an idea of when we're gonna be there, the notifications that they'll receive when we come there. This construction season.
And it gives them an opportunity to weigh in on anything they might be aware of, you know, it's a heads up that we're coming to what it will entail, so there's no surprise as far as what kind of equipment, you know, it differs depending on, and, you know, have a little bit of back and forth.
Yeah, they obviously a resident living on a street has the best idea of the issues that are out there, so it is a good opportunity to bring up other issues that can be addressed.
Do you have that map in your presentation?
I do, yeah, it's the next slide.
Can you zoom in on all of this? So, given how this calculus that this tech, are they getting the same list of streets? Just that they know what is coming and if
Actually-
they have any input?
Steve, do they know our construction schedule this year? If we ever, we've never shared it. I can recall in the past, they've never really had a seat at the table. So no, that's not something we have done, but it's certainly something we can do. The decision of what roads is based on the model, and it's.
You know, it's not
not for
for-
input, it's for
For them
awareness.
to
Yeah.
decide if you're doing this.
Right, it's
road.
awareness.
It's for them to know they're on a deck and most likely to be done.
Mhm.
And if they had any input, I don't know if there needs to be some adjustment in striping or whatever for any kind of
Mhm.
things, that's the point for them to raise their hand,
Right,
yeah?
Yeah.
Just to,
So-
in the interest that we don't work in these silos.
Correct, great,
Yeah,
great. That's something we haven't done. It's not part of the routine, but we can certainly make it part of the routine.
yeah.
And I think as we talk about, it's not just next year, you know, engineering always has a multi-year program, so they can share it for the, with the utilities, so we can sort of try and map out some of the needs or change schedules accordingly, so I think it's not a bad idea to kind of keep them informed of that as well.
But make clear this is for
This is.
budget as
yeah, right.
usual.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
not the big ask.
This is the $2.5 million plus or minus.
Yeah,
Yeah.
2.7, I think.
And this is money we have.
Yes,
This is the
yeah.
available budget.
Oh, this is from the current fiscal year?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
and are the utilities notified about this already, or?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So National Grid did their stuff they needed to do?
Not necessarily.
They're no, no.
They will
Water?
surprise us.
Water, sewer, broadband and electric are all part of the town and
Yeah.
do the best we can to integrate. And I said, it's not always perfect. And sometimes we just have to understand it's gonna be a risk. But, you know, as I said, when there is a problem, it's usually a spot repair and it's the town doing it. And, you know, ideally, we understand it's best to not have a problem after a reclaim, for instance. If they're doing the modest treatments, we're not gonna spend millions of dollars to save, you know, tens of thousands. So that's kind of the decision-making process.
You know, one of the reasons that we bring the projects to the abutters, because after paving, the road goes into a 5-year moratorium on cutting. So they have the opportunity, if they want to do something, you know, prior to the actual paving, like a utility connection.
Yeah.
Something like that, or get gas service. You
Yeah.
can do that.
And I totally support reaching out to the abutters and getting their input for that purpose, but also, you know, they know the road better than anybody else, and they may point out some issues or concerns. When I brought this up before, when we go to those meetings, I think it would be great as professionals if we say, especially in full depth reconstruction, what do you think if we tweak this or move that a little bit? Because maybe we don't need as much pavement in some areas, and we can reduce the amount of pavement in some areas, or use the reconstruction to better direct traffic in some areas versus just putting everything back the way it was. If this is an opportunity to improve on what was there. So I don't know if we go to them with, we want to hear from you as the butters, but what do you think about this or that?
We typically ask for, you know, what issues they have experienced or are experiencing. If we do recognize that there's excessive pavement, we have seen in some neighborhoods.
Yeah.
We ourselves will offer a reduction in
Okay.
pavement. The biggest issue with reducing pavement width is if there's drainage.
Yep.
At the edges of the street, and you
Yep.
pull in those edges,
No,
then I know you're running into drainage problems, that. It's a budget issue.
Totally understand that.
Other questions?
It's impressed.
I would only, one thing when you go out, given the experience we had last year. What was that street where it
Yeah.
took forever?
I was thinking about. Highland.
Yeah, Highland.
Highland,
Yeah,
yeah, just say
Yeah.
like, communicate to the about specifically when we do larger work. Is they're all, in this town, with the history of the town, we always have surprises. And things can take longer when we suddenly discover a surprise.
Mhm.
Yeah, because it's not your fault.
No,
But
it's
it's
expectations, just
expectations
trying to,
that-
you know,
yeah.
make clear that, yes, there is gonna be this impact, and the other challenge we have is contractors, and this is part of why we're trying to
Yeah.
expand our program, so we don't end up sort of being the in-between projects for contractors, we are the project. And that's one of the values of trying to bundle, I think, Steve, you wanna talk a little bit about sort of, not just next year, but is that,
Is that
am I in the right?
Yeah, it's coming.
Yeah, okay, yeah. So there's a few more slides left?
Fog
Okay.
ceiling, is that road that was problematic, fog ceiling?
No, that was
No,
a
no.
full depth
That's
reconstruction.
full
Really?
reconstruction,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
The
Yeah.
people got so upset.
Oh, and that's the most invasive. Yeah, it is a, you know, you're ripping up the road, you're finding some of the, in this case, it was stormwater, you know, a problem that hadn't been reasonably audited, inspected in a way that we'd like to, if we had funds to. But this is the problem of, no, we won't spend money, then we spend more later and it's more upset. It's our chronic message of, let us be proactive, but we need funds to do it. And if we don't, you're still gonna pay, you're just not gonna be as happy.
Any of the roads that you're looking at doing this year, do they need new guardrails?
That's a good question. So it would be a totally different contractor.
Okay.
That would be doing it, so.
I
it's
mean,
not-
you'd wanna do it simultaneously, maybe?
No, I don't think there's a reason to.
Okay.
It would definitely want to be handled with different contractors for sure,
Okay.
just for pricing reasons, but.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think a guardrail project necessarily has to be done in conjunction with a pavement project.
But to be clear, we have talked about sidewalks, that's where it is kind of similar, you know, contractor, same work, you know, aprons to driveways, all that sort of stuff.
But
that-
yeah,
That's-
concrete ramps.
That's
yeah.
where there is an opportunity that we
Right.
haven't really, you know, realized.
On that, when you touch sidewalks, if it happens, I don't know if these streets have what sidewalk. And given we are doing our new stormwater enterprise stuff, is there a better material to use for sidewalks, more impervious, less impervious, like that we have less runoff?
We have pretty much three different sidewalk materials, right? Concrete, mostly in the town centers, some stone dust that most people don't like.
Yeah.
And then asphalt, none of which really is impervious. Oh, it's porous.
First, so, but
Right.
is there
If
something?
there's something, I'm sure you can find something. There's porous pavement. It's not used in this town. But typically you don't find them on sidewalks. You find them in parking areas.
Yeah.
Because you have to get the water to get there on the pavement to get in the ground. So you don't normally find sidewalks having, a porous type material.
The challenge with porous pavement is also maintenance. Porous is only if it's maintained as porous, but amazing that sand and, you know, particulates will plug that very quickly and it requires very regular maintenance sort of to have that benefit. That's another.
And here's the thing about a porous surface, right? Everybody promotes that. They think it's just that surface material, the 4 inches or whatever. That in itself allows the water to get down. It's where you put the water when it gets
Yes,
down.
down there,
So you need to
yeah.
have at least 2 to 3 feet of nice drain materials to collect the water, hold the water, infiltrate it.
That's how the Germans are doing.
Yeah, and that's what brings that cost up. So.
Okay, so a few more slides here.
Yeah, this is just a list of streets that didn't get done this year for various reasons, but they are still scheduled to get done this year.
From last year's schedule.
They're from my, yeah,
Right,
yeah,
okay.
just a map of those same streets. So that, I just want to touch upon what our current funding is and the future impacts to it. And then touch upon what's being proposed for 26 through FY 30. So right now, our historical budget on average has been around 2.5 million. And then the PCI projection, moving forward is shown by that red line there, which is right now it's at 73 and it's projected to decrease to around 66. So that's with the current funding. The other models that were run, to see what funding we need to increase our PCI to a acceptable level, which we're calling 85, is around an average of 5 million per year. And that is what is being proposed at the town meeting this year, to be voted on. So that's what this slide is 25 million being proposed for pavement management, which will allow us to plan more long range, to include sidewalks, safety improvements, and better utility coordination, I guess, between water, sewer, and third party.
And Joe, is this map accurate as far as the actual 5-year
Yes,
identified?
yes, so this is the
This is
proposed
recent.
streets for the, what the $5 million, the 5-year, $5 million funding plan would cover.
So this is how many miles or how much percent of the roads we will touch with that program?
It's a good question. I don't know that.
We'll get the answer.
Yeah.
Good question.
Yeah,
And we'll start
Must be
sharing
around-
this plan.
Must be around 35% or something.
yeah, so we are working on an interactive public facing map that the public can go in and look at this on the street, to see what we're proposing, when we're proposing it. Yeah, I can definitely get that number.
Yeah, so just as a feedback, Alan and I did several presentations already. We are the FinCom, giving them an early view before the official hearing. Generally, it seems that there's an openness for the program. To get it done, also together then with the sidewalk and safety part. The current draft asks right now for 27.5 million in total, including the safety side, so that we all do that together. And we got first numbers on the tax impact, so we have to look at that.
Mhm.
Yeah, so would be interesting.
Yeah, very important that we're playing the long game. No matter how we look, we're proposing about the same level of investment over 10 years. It's the schedule of it that really needs to be, we need to make clear.
Get a hand up.
Very
It's
good.
Linda, yeah. Yeah, Linda,
Are we ready for,
yeah, we can do that.
Linda?
Hi, I just,
Hi.
Linda, 59 Mallard Drive. I have a couple questions. Just like, it's great that if you can coordinate with tax, so you can get feedback, where the safety improvements can be made, where they're hearing feedback from residents. And I'm glad to hear that you're also trying to contact the abutters and that you have this website that you're going to work on so people can see where you're going to working on. I don't know if the website also has like ways for residents to make their comments and chime in as opposed to like waiting for you to come by and telling you in person. So that would be one. The second comment is about the different levels of safety that can be made, like changes that can be made. Like the fog seal appears to be like the lightest touch. I'm just wondering, like for that one, that would only be like maybe changes in paint, like the lines and stuff like that, correct? I'm just wondering what those are. And then my third question is regarding like the prioritization. You show the PCI histogram, which is very helpful, but I'm wondering if you also take into account the number of people you touch or impact. Like you might have a PCI that's really terrible in a like kind of out there neighborhood that's only feeding 2 houses. According to your histogram, that would be prioritized, but if it's only like 2 houses, that seemed like that would be lower priority than something that has slightly better roads, but impacts a lot more people. If you could comment on that, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Right. Steve, Joe, you want to take that?
Yeah, so you're right about the fog ceiling. That being such a minimally invasive treatment, it doesn't give the opportunity to make those improvements. Striping you could do. But other than that, it's fairly light. So it doesn't really lend the opportunity to necessarily make other improvements there. It's like a 3-4 hour process to get that done. As far as the impacts to that these projects have, there is taken into consideration the volume of traffic on the street, which does it does impact prioritization of that street along with the PCI.
Any other questions?
In the
Sorry.
comments,
Yeah.
the comment to people, if they have comments, I think we're always open to having them call you as.
Yeah,
project
so-
manager.
yeah,
That's the
so
best way to
so-
get that
so we'll-
information.
What we've done in the past is we've had virtual meetings where we distribute door hangers, invite all the abutters. And then with that meeting, I distribute my contact information directly.
And that's how they can make comments. We don't have anything set up on the website yet. And like I said, we are working on that interactive map.
Cameron?
Sorry, I just wanted to
Yes.
ask one, so thank you very much for the presentation. And I'm sorry, I don't have the slides in front of me, but you talked about the 2.5 million as standard and then the 5 million is sort of the accelerated. So just for my understanding and maybe for everybody else's understanding, what we're asking for, is it 5 million incremental to the 2.5, or is it it becomes the new 2.5, if you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it becomes
So for
like,
5 years, we are increasing. It's not 2.5 plus 5. It's the 2.5 will be replaced by 5 plus, and the plus is for sidewalks and safety. So, that's a kind of a accelerated budget, and I think if you had a chance to look at the last Public Works Commission meeting, the recording is finally up. That took a little bit longer. There we have a very complex table where you see the different scenarios, how fast and how quickly we can pull. But again, we are not talking like 2.5 plus 5. We're talking, it's either the current run rate of 2.5 or kind of 5+ million, for 5 years.
Yep.
And then after that, depending how quickly we could deploy, the ongoing run rate can be lower. So we have 2 scenarios which we like to be in, and there you could have a ongoing run rate of something like 1.5 million instead of a 2.5 million.
That's right. We're trying, Cameron, to get below to a level that's sustainable, that doesn't require borrowing, right? So that would be, which will maintain roads at a good quality. And that's really the challenge to understand. You have to front load to get to that point, but when you do, you now have a very reliable capital plan that will sustain roads and maintain them in a condition that is good uniformly. So it's a really interesting concept, but that's why we're looking at the tier 3 borrowing as to get there. That's why it's borrowed. But once we are, then we're not looking at additional borrowing after that. That's not the plan, or that is the plan.
all right, yep, no, thank you, and it's helpful to understand the positioning around the incremental versus the total. Thanks.
Sure. Was there another question here?
Any other questions? Let's see, any in the audience?
No?
No?
I just wanted to just say like how helpful it is when you guys describe how having that little bit of extra money allows you to plan, and how that planning process allows you to get more from the people that you hire to do this, the contractors, and how that coordination can really lower the cost of so much. I think that is something I did not understand until I heard you guys describe the budget process year after year. So I think that's like a really good, it's like planning anything, right? If you can plan several projects at once, you're gonna get better rates, better responses from the.
Efficiency of scale.
Yeah,
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 that's it.
which I think like is such an important point to maybe make over and over
Great.
again.
I took a peek at the previous presentations, and an idea of the miles, the 5-year, $5 million a mile, $5 million a year. It's about 58 miles of preservation streets and rehab streets,
About 55% of the road.
and another 40 miles of routine maintenance.
And 40 miles routine maintenance.
Yeah, crack
So
sealing.
98 miles out of 107 miles.
And that would be getting it a PCI of 85 at the end of 5
And when we talk efficiencies, we're now also talking about a reduction in the workforce and materials through the winter for maintenance of potholes and that sort of thing. And that's a cost that we're currently absorbing, and it's always the balance between the engineering with the design capital and our highway grounds with the maintenance. And the better condition we get the roads, the less they're gonna be spending those resources and time on that work.
So literally, we're touching close to every street in town. So either with significant improvements or with just preservation.
Yours, we said the goal.
No.
But what's the risk that you can't absorb it? You're doubling.
Okay, the question is, workload. And that is something that we sort of are looking at as far as, you know, probably the sweet spot is going to be, you know, we couldn't spend $27 million in a year. It'd be great if we could. Realistically, Steve, as far as, you know, we're looking at part of the funds will allow for design services,
Yes.
right? So that's where we're going to short-term workload for engineers will increase, but those costs are soft. That's for engineering services, not the road work. And I think there's a certain amount of allowance to let utilities do what they need to with enough advance notice. So it's gonna be just trying to find, it's not one answer, but just adapting. And we're really looking at that 5-year period of whether it's 5.25 million one year and 6 another. I mean, that's really gonna be dependent on the project. I would imagine it would be.
So when we looked at the scenarios, I was concerned about that 7.5 million per year scenario.
Yeah, right out of the gate, right?
Where you're not getting there right off the gate. On the
No.
other hand, we saw, just remember one thing is the roads are deteriorating very, very quickly, and we saw the effect. The faster we touch these things, the less of a residual backlog we have after this. So I know it will be a stretch, yeah.
It's
but-
interesting concepts, and we're gonna continue the messaging. We're gonna go to the League of Women Voters. We're gonna be talking to the bridge. We're going to, even the climate action, committee's interested in this.
Actually, the bridge thing might run next Friday,
Okay, there you go.
so let's see.
You go.
Okay, other questions? None. Getting to D6, AMI meter reading opt-out policy.
Thank you.
This will have, we will have a decision to make today. Yeah, so you're not having a free day, just making sure. Yeah, you need to work for your money.
This is an action.
Yeah.
All
All
right.
right.
I'm gonna introduce Paula Bertram, who is our business analyst for Public Works. Paula has been with us for almost 6 months or getting close.
Since September.
Since September. So
Welcome.
Thank you.
Paula has been sort of delving into our upgrade meter, program, and we came with a bit of an update or an explanation that we had fallen behind on our meter maintenance, and we were, needed to play some catch up. And there's some information that now that we have someone at the helm, and Paula's at the helm, we're getting better information. So we want to give you an update on sort of the status of our replacement program first, and then a policy request to assist in the advancement of our meter replacement program and upgrades of technology. So Paula, do you wanna?
Sure, so hopefully you all had a chance to read the memos. The zero read update is since the adoption of the zero read policy back in September, the number of accounts with transmission failures is continuing to rise. And what we found by tracking that is it's primarily due to aging census meters, and they have expired batteries. So with many of these meters still in service, obviously proactive replacement is a priority at this point. So some of the things that we've done is we have the new transponders or nodes is what we call them. Excuse me, and we have 5,651 of those that were purchased. We did a small meter acquisition recently for 300 meters. And we're in the midst of deploying those, but we are going to have to do a larger scale replacement initiative, and we're currently working on that RFP. We are doing we have a structured notification process in place, and it's a tiered notification process. We're contacting customers, letting them know what is going on with their meters. Unfortunately, in some cases, people don't get back to us. We've tried to contact them by phone, by email, or by leaving door hangers, and then we send out a letter. And then if that doesn't happen, we've adopted an enforcement policy, which is really to get attention and get them to call us. We're not in the business of trying to shut people off, but we need to be able to get readings. So the replacements are ongoing. Most of the customers have already been contacted that are on our zero read list. And we have backbilled many of those people to 1 year in accordance with the policy that was adopted. We haven't had any issues to date with people with concerns about the back billing, except for one individual who questioned the amount. And then we found by deploying the new node, we didn't implement the charges. We deployed the new node and we discovered that there was an active leak in the home. So we addressed that situation. We are actively monitoring the situation each month. Each billing cycle, we get an exception report, which identifies any zero readings. And then we go through and identify whether they need to be notified, whether they're on the list or where they are in the process. And obviously our goal is to ensure accurate billing. Any questions?
I think that definitely major progress to where we were like last summer.
Yeah, actually, Paula and Linda, Collins,
Yeah.
who have really put a lot of effort. We're doing a lot of cleanup. And Sven, you had actually flagged, is this a trend? At
Yeah.
the time,
Yes.
I admittedly didn't know, I'm so old school, I didn't know that we were at the beginning of an issue with battery life. In my former, water sewer superintendent days, we
There was
hadn't
no
reached
battery.
that. It wasn't the battery. So this was a different problem. The reality is we may need to accelerate, as Paula mentioned, the replacement schedule and program. So while the light plant was out there, they needed to set up first before we could do this. So we're now, you may see, depending on, how we need to get notice out there, there may be a lot of information that we share about, the need to replace a program. But we also need the resources to do it, both the meters and the installers. So that's gonna be, stay tuned on, that outreach.
Right.
Do we know from if it's a battery issue, it's like, do you see that really from the lifetime of the respective meters that they have a
Some of them
certain?
we have, some of them have been, 15, 20 years old, but we've had a few that are only 10 years old. And on the meter, it's stamped 20-year battery, but it hasn't lasted that 20 years. I'm not quite sure if that answers your question.
Yeah, but I was going more like if you know, let's say the battery fails, let's say, if it says 20 years, it's most likely like 15 to 18 years. So are we getting ahead of the curve?
No,
then?
we're now there, we're at the point where
Yeah.
we've identified that as the need.
Okay.
And we're looking at the procurement to catch up, but the good news is at least we have a system in place so we can implement versus,
Right, and the new technology that we're deploying will actually alert us
Okay.
when systems when batteries are nearing their end of life, so we won't be in this situation again. And the plan is to develop a meter replacement program.
So I'm just wondering, let's say that I got 2 years until I get some notice. Are you gonna be putting something out there and say, hey, just let you know that this is coming down the pike for you?
that's what we're trying to determine. Do we need to just respond to the problem meters, which may keep us busy enough?
Right,
So we don't want to inundate, please call us because
Yeah.
we don't have the bandwidth
Right.
to deal. If we have the bandwidth to deal with a large volume, then you'll see more outreach, like more proactive.
right,
We're just not there yet.
okay.
Right, we're communicating with some other towns that have gone through this and trying to learn from their experiences. And likely we'll end up doing a procurement for a large meter order, but also potentially services to install them.
Okay.
So that's the update.
How much revenue are you missing?
I don't have an exact number. I can tell you that we've taken in approximately 55,000 from the ones that we've back billed.
And you estimated bill legally?
Yes. And part of our process now is when we find that a meter has not read for a couple of months, we take their usage from the prior similar period, whether it be winter or summer. And then we calculate that estimated usage and are entering estimated reads, so we don't end up in a situation where we have overwhelming zero reads.
Yeah, and the thing is, we had that last year when we had this some readers like out forever.
Yeah, many years, yeah,
Many
Yeah,
multiple
so
years.
we cleaned that up
That's what
last
the
year
cleanup was, yeah,
to get into this
exactly.
program that we are not suddenly have. Last year we felt really bad, it's going back and back charging clients for, I don't know, 2 or 3 years, yeah, so we forgave a certain period. And then.
We did this when I was first hired in '96. It was not fun.
Light plant meters was a very expensive project.
It is, yeah. That's right. Well, basically, so they needed to put the infrastructure in, so we can now talk about the next activity, which is the upgrade to this AMI technology, and that's the policy. So any other questions on?
Oh, yeah, there's more, I was already.
Yeah, so that was,
wondering.
so now it's the
That was
policy.
the update on where we
Yeah,
are with
okay.
the zero reads. But as part of this program, what we found is that there are customers in Concord that have opted out of AMI, which is advanced metering infrastructure, for their electricity. And the new water nodes are dependent on the electric meter, in order to transmit. So therefore, anyone who is opted out of the electric program, AMI program, will need to opt out of the water program. So we're putting forth an opt-out policy that we're hoping that you'll recommend. As you know, we're in the process of deploying these meters, and we found that there's a couple customers that have come to us and said, I don't want an AMI on my property. So we need to adopt a policy to handle those customers and to balance that with our billing. So we've researched opt-out.
Before you go there, just the background. Dave goes, well, why? So the AMI has a couple different blemishes or, hiccups that systems have when they go to this automated, it has radio frequency communications like a cell phone or something. So there's a health concern that some people have, and, okay, and that's fine, that's their prerogative. There's lots of data out there, you can do the research. There's also a group of individuals who are really concerned about privacy. And can you get more information, from, as I talk, I know it's being collected somewhere, that's a concern. So the light plan has gone through this with all of the upgrades, and they've identified a couple dozen customers who are really adamant they do not want this on their property or in their residence. So that's why we have this, that's why they have the opt-out program, and before we start installing this, we just want to make sure we have something that works for water sewer. So that's the backdrop. That's why we're talking about this.
So the key restrictions for eligibility to participate in an opt-out is, as I said, anyone who's opted out for electric has to opt out for water. And the opt-out option will be available for single-family homes and buildings with fewer than 3 units. It would not be available for commercial entities. And we would request that property owners submitted an official request, and they have to cover any additional costs for one of the option that they choose. And we have 3 options right now, and one is still under being explored. So limited AMI transmission. So that is right now, the transponders transmit every 15 minutes. So we're getting data every 15 minutes for any node that's been deployed. We would limit that to 1 transmission a day, a month. So it would not be a daily transmission. The other option is a manual meter read system, and there were a couple options on the market that we're really looking at to determine what would be best for us. But we would replace the AMI node with a manual read system. That would mean that we actually have to go and read those meters. And the final option would be a meter pit, and that would be a meter pit placed outside the home, in the ground in a meter pit. And the full installation cost would be covered by the property owner, but there would be no recurring fees. For those that we have to manually read, we're suggesting a monthly fee.
What is CMLP doing? They have similar options for their opt-out people?
They are just doing manual reads.
They're just doing manual reads.
Mhm.
Who's this?
The
Light
light
plan.
plant.
Oh, the light plant.
Yeah, so the technology for AMI is driven by electric utilities Cause it's real-time data, you know, they need that. For water, sewer, the 15-minute intervals is sufficient to give you a good profile of your use over a day, if interested, or find a leak, you know, which would help. But so the light plant, you know, they don't have the option to put a meter pit like we
Right.
are doing.
Right.
That's for the people who really don't want anyone on or near their property. You know, it's just stay away. It's not inexpensive, but it can be done, and it requires an installation of a meter pit, setting the meter up, and we can get the read.
Right,
The
right, they are transmitting, we have some in meter pits now.
That's right. And then the first option, which is if you're okay with one signal generated, one pulse a month, there is no additional cost other than programming. So we wouldn't assess a fee. It simply just set that up, and that's easy. What they miss is any opportunity to be part of a early warning leak detection that we may, you know, flag. Or if they just want to know what their use is, or they got a problem, they want to know, well, how did I get here? They won't have that data. So it's just less.
So how many people opted out at
It's like
CMLT?
35,
36.
Okay, yeah.
We're doing all of this for 36 people. Households.
Yeah,
Right. I do want to point out on the leak detection, through the new technology that we've deployed, Linda Collins, I do the zero reads and she's reviewing the high usage, and we have discovered several leaks already.
That's good.
That have been addressed. So this new technology is really great from an entire system.
And then you
perspective.
notify the customer.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
How do you reach out to them usually?
A variety of ways. If we have a phone number, we usually call. If we don't have a phone number, then we'll email. And if we don't have either, then we'll make a visit and put a door hanger.
Okay.
Do you think this is bearable burden? Is it? too
oh,
much?
this is something we really need. It's nationwide, you know, we're not unique. And, you know, I think we've explored it and we've looked at, I think we have maybe one or two more options than everyone else.
Right,
But-
right. Most have just a manual read
Yeah,
option.
but you know, again, we think we can manage it, but any costs, again, part of the policy is, and we'll come back with our rate hearing, with our scheduled rates, and we'll be able to define what those additional costs would be.
So I'm still struggling with option one. Sorry.
Yeah.
Here's my physics background or whatever, engineering. So if CMLP deactivated AMI on their reader and then doing manual reading, how can we for that customer send a once a month signal over the system?
If they've opted out, they will have no option. They will have to do the manual meter.
So the ones that
system.
already opted out, they can only have the manual read or the pit.
And the pit may not work. It's gonna depend on where there's the proximity of another electric meter, because we have to have an electric meter in proximity
Yes.
of, so it's gonna depend, and the policy states that it will be determined by Public Works, which one is.
Site
is an
specific.
option.
If
Site
it works,
specific,
So
right.
option one is only if they did not opt out of the CMLP, but want to opt out of
Exactly.
ours.
Exactly, and I think in the policy it says this option is not available if you've opted out.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Questions from the commissioners?
Yeah, just remind me of the decision, yes, no, maybe what we're voting on.
You're voting on a policy that we've presented.
Yeah,
And once you have adopted that, we will practice that.
and the policy is the option one include.
Is to allow an opt-out. And there's three alternatives, and we vetted them, and you understand it and are comfortable.
So what I would propose is that, let's say, when we do this,
Mhm.
that, let's say, after half a year, you're coming back and letting us know if that policy
Sure.
worked.
Yeah. that's
Sure.
right.
Sure.
Yeah,
Or if you need
All
any
knowledge be
changes.
adopted
That's a good
or modified, yeah.
Yeah, sometimes you do policy, it gets somewhere.
Mhm.
That's why we did the update tonight
Yeah.
on the policy you adopted in September, is to let you know how things are going.
is there a motion?
Well,
I'm watching you.
You wanna get home early. I'm scratching it to
Do you
exactly
wanna make,
six.
do you wanna
You
make a
know.
motion or shall I?
You can make the motion.
Okay, I, Gretchen Rohrbach, hereby make a motion to approve the AMI meter reading opt-out policy as presented and described in the water meter upgrade and opt-out policy memo dated March 2025, as submitted by the Public Works Director.
I second.
All in favor?
Uh,
Aye. Okay, here you go.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah,
Mhm.
so now we have 11 minutes.
We have
10
11
minutes.
minutes.
10 minutes.
You down lots of time.
For facilities.
Last but not least, Russ. Russ Carlstead, our facility manager, is on his way up to, if I can find
So-
this.
Before you start, Russ, so how many people are working for you?
There are 10 in the department right now,
10.
including me.
It's part of the presentation.
Oh,
Stealing is.
What the hell? That was the.
But this, is this everything you do? This is amazing.
I'm feeling beat up.
You do all
Car is yours? I don't do it, the team does it.
this? That's a lot.
Facilities does a lot. So,
Had enough.
we can run through this and you guys can ask your questions.
So you gotta appreciate, this was a photograph taken by one of our team. Isn't that
Yes.
pretty impressive?
Yeah.
Melissa
Nice.
Simoncini, or
nice.
environmental regulatory coordinator was going by.
That a wooden railing?
That's a wooden railing that won't sustain impact from an electric car.
Yeah.
Just so we're all aware of that. I want to get that out there tonight.
Not just that is the bridge.
Yeah.
Okay, so we are not proposing to modify the railing on the bridge.
Oh, we could do that, come on.
You can put some.
All right,
little
Russ,
guard-
you have less than 10 minutes.
TikTok.
Okay,
The, and Linda is our graphics person, so just everyone gives kudos to Linda for putting graphics together. So, we're just throwing together some of the townwide initiatives we have going, you know, facilities, we touch everything related to the town. We're in constant contact with all the employees. We're pretty much a face and we're the guys people call up when they don't know who else to call. So some of the big stuff we're doing is the townwide land and building use analysis. It's happening. It's in conjunction with the MCI properties, all the other properties that are around. There's a lot of spaces in town that need to be, or should be consolidated, could be consolidated. We can save a lot of money, put a lot of properties back into the public realm and back into the tax rolls if we do this right for long-term growth for the town. Number of capital needs issues here on this campus. We're finishing the re-roofing project on these buildings. Replacing the roof that blew off the salt shed last week. Little things that happen all the time. Barrett Mill is gonna get some work. Marshall Farm's gonna get some work. We're in a process of putting together an ESCO proposal or an RFQ, which is an energy service company contract town-wide for all town-owned buildings. That looks at the infrastructure and the building, the envelope of the building, the equipment in the building. And we come up with a global plan to improve all of it, and it's based on shared savings and energy consumption use and carbon goals. And the schools have agreed to join us on that. That's what helps with the square footage. New dual head charges are coming on this site. We got 5 dual heads coming on. We got a 60% grant, which is worth 67 grand. So it's only gonna cost us 45. So that's gonna be probably kicking off the next couple of weeks as soon as my vendor gets out of Aruba. I talked about the space consolidation already. We take care of all the buildings, all the aspects of the buildings. We have a lot of sound issues in town, and town hall is a big one. And also over at Harvey Wheeler. So we've had acoustical engineers in there recently studying it, and they're coming to come up with a proposal. So we'll use some capital funds to help mediate the sound problems over there.
Yeah, the irony is the biggest problem is the hearing room.
Yeah, the hearing room, you can't hear in, you know? I wear hearing aids and I only get every third word over there and during the meetings, and Alan's always laying me out because I don't know what he's talking about. But it's every third word. And then there's always continual improvement across everything. We got 2 new hires, Donald DeMarco, plus sign number 1, and then the plus sign that's hidden. is our,
I'm having problems with my screen here. I'm sorry, I gotta work on my.
is our HVAC tech, George Bono. George is actually a town resident, was working at Emerson Hospital nights. He wanted to see what the daylight was like, so he came over. As you know, we had a lot of trouble filling that position. It took us almost a year to fill that position with the right person. You had a huge turnout for the custodial position. Donald floated to the top on that. Now we are fully staffed at the moment and hoping for good things. So,
So if we would benchmark this against other towns with respect to staffing,
we're pretty much average.
average,
Yeah,
that is-
we're in a good place.
and if the town over time would consolidate buildings and so on, it would get,
We would let attrition handle that,
okay.
right? Because right now we're well-staffed. We're understaffed for the square footage we have based on APPA standards.
Yeah,
So if we downgraded some square footage or consolidated square footage, we'd be right in the sweet spot where we're supposed to be.
okay,
But coming from a place where you do more with less, we can always manage, but we want to manage to a higher level. So we don't want to cut staffing or look at that, in regards to what we have right now.
Well, so you can talk about the level of, what we try in the industry as far as there's levels of.
Yeah, there's many metrics out there. I use American Planning Association, so they've got a 5-grade step. One is, you're not doing anything. 1 is the best and 5 is you're not doing anything. And it's all related to survey responses and the perception of end users. So we're sort of 3 heading into 2 right now, which is, like I said, it's a sweet spot. It's where we want to be. So if we staffed up, we wouldn't jump to 2 or 1 because we can't do that financially because there's too many repairs and upgrades that need to happen. So we're in the right spot right now. Everything we have is clean. Everything we have works. We know what's going to break. We're just waiting for it to break. We can't afford to fix it right off the bat. That kind of thing. So as we move forward, we'll get ahead of that. So now that we're perfectly staffed, we have our HVAC tech in at the right level, and we're gonna get ahead of a lot more things in the next 12 months.
Yeah, and Russ is his team, I really appreciate hearing the positive feedback, because they are more visible, they're around, they're helpful, and people see their work, and I'm just hearing a lot of good things from, their customer are their employees primarily, who are using the space. And, the space that we have, it's
Is
doing
what
the
it
best
is.
we can with it. So.
Right. Yeah, and these guys, they're learning how to prioritize stuff in their daily tasking. Because everyone gets asked 20 times a day to do something. And I've instructed them to say, go see Russ. Don't say no, go see Russ. And going to that, we have a work order system, which we don't love. But the work order systems use to control the flow of service requests to the appropriate technician or outsourced vendor, set priorities, check costs, and labor expenses. Very simple. Everybody knows what work order system is. But with a work order system, crap in, crap out. And we hadn't been utilizing this properly since we had it from, it came on board in 19. So this is a sample of a printed out work order. So here was I just picked one. I didn't know what it was. Outgoing mail not picked up the last week. Have many letters to mail. Thank you. That's the level of services. We do the mail deliveries. So that's one of the mail deliveries. This is at the visitor center. And when they're only on open part-time or something, sometimes we miss over there. So that's a work order. Beth put that in and we've already taken care of that. This is over the course of time, like 2020, there were 60 closed work orders, no detail. No one put any information in there. Right? Then over here, there's 25 or something, or whatever it is, closed work orders. And no detail. Then we go to 2025 year to date. There's 200 or 300 completed work orders, and you can see all the other information is checked off on hold, void, duplicate request, pending, and there's a lot more costs built into it. And on the next sheet, we'll take out and we'll get a spreadsheet out. And you still see there's a lot of holes in there because not everything's costed out yet. The worksheet may not have been closed out or finalized. But we're ramping up and we're getting all the costs in there. We're getting all the labor hours in there. This way really get your metrics down. So this year, at the end of this year, we should have some good numbers on the software to help us determine, you know, needs and where the problems are and where the attention. That's why I have a work order system.
So, quick question is, so I see Beta Center and Light Plant. So the work you're doing for them, are this getting charged or reimbursed by their budgets?
Excellent question. Up until this year, we've been doing a lot of work at the Beatty Center
Yeah,
and we were paying for it,
okay,
but we've put a stop to that.
yeah,
Same with the light plant. And, you know, we work with them, we advise them when they need it, when they want our advice or our help. But we're no longer funding their repairs as their enterprise funds.
so if they use you, they need to
Pay us.
pay us.
Yeah.
Okay, the
Yeah.
same Peter. Any other examples like that? Did I pick by accident just the?
Oh, no, yeah, well, there's a whole bunch of it, you know, hunt gym,
Recreation will be,
a
you
lot of the
know,
recreation stuff,
Okay.
you know, so there's been a
high
lot.
school, I see
No.
there.
I don't know if the high school, if the high school's on there, it's a mistake.
The high school is the,
Oh, that's Doug Whitefield
At
Doug Whitefield in the
Field.
video and the,
and the police and the
Minuteman.
Minuteman. See, we still
Oh.
clean the Minuteman TV station
Yeah,
and we still service Doug White, which.
looks clean there. I was
Well, they have
there last-
custodians over there,
Yeah.
so we don't really need to go over there. So we're talking about that.
So no, Sven, the very good, so, you know, to Russ's credit, he's the first facility manager who's really managing. You know, we've had a facilities department and they were doing everything they could to keep up. But they didn't have the capability of managing the way we need to. But Public Works, as you remember, we only absorbed facilities just a year ago. So it's now getting the, you know, TLC from Public Works, but Russ has a lot of experience and, you know, I think that's been helpful for all of the departments as well as guidance, but also not absorbing things we shouldn't. And that's important, especially as we're looking at our budgets and, you know, as I said, we're right-sized, but, you know, he's got a good work crew. They're, you know, get great training. But facilities is one of those, the silent, you know, division that just has a lot of impact. So it's just good to have them come in and, you know, remind us. That's really the point today.
And the important thing to remember about the facilities group is, you know, we're everywhere, so we know everything.
Uh-oh.
Be careful what you throw in your waste baskets. Shred, shred, shred.
So.
So you? Alan's perfect, he does nothing wrong.
Okay, well, that was the last slide.
That's all I missed that. Any questions?
That was information.
So what's the breadth of your responsibilities, Russ? So you have custodial, you have maintenance projects, which is what your work order is. You're keeping inventory of facilities, you're looking at space utilization. What else is in there? That's a big mandate, right?
Anything related to buildings is mine.
Four walls and a roof.
Yeah, as much smarter than me one time said, 4 walls and a roof. He's sorry he ever said that to me. The property around it is related to grounds. Although we typically take care of up to 10 foot outside the building, we do snow removal on the walkways and things like that. Highway grounds does the big plowing jobs. You know, we just make sure the paths at all of our buildings are cleaned up.
And there was always an interesting sort of gray area of roles, responsibilities when facilities was independent of Public Works, but our highway grounds group kind of worked very closely with the facilities group to kind of catch everything in between. So,
And that was integrated, what, a year ago?
about a year ago.
Yeah.
You know, and in previous roles, I always had the entire town or city and all the grounds and parks and stuff. So this is new for me, just having the buildings, so we can focus on the buildings. And then we can help out with grounds when we have to. So it's a good mix over here right now. Like Alan said, we're right sized.
And there's also integration with our engineering division too. Engineering was working with facilities over at the COA, you know, where there was some structural issues, some ADA issues, and so, you know, it's found the right home. It's been an effort, and we're still learning the needs, but, you know, basically.
Will you have input for the capital budget request?
Yeah, I do all the capital for the facilities needs. So this year we put in a large cap request, but we got a lump sum of $750 to take care of capital projects, which is adequate. to take care of what we need to. Nothing new, just repairs and replacement.
No major initiatives.
Yeah, nothing major.
HVAC comes under you as well.
Yep,
So the boilers in the schools, et cetera, you'll be.
not the schools, just the town buildings. Yeah, go that, we don't do the schools, that's Russ Hughes over there.
Okay.
Oh, the schools have their own facilities department. Yeah, so they're fully staffed.
With a lot of new facilities.
Yeah.
All right. Interest of time,
Public
Yeah.
comment or is there-
public comment was in the beginning, but you can have one quick one because we are over time.
I stayed the entire time. I'm sorry. I was told at the end. I'm Isabel Bailey, 121 Everett Street. I'm on the Pollinator Health Advisory Committee. I'm also a supervisor with the Middlesex Conservation District, and I'm a trail steward for the NRC. And for the committee, Health Pollinator Committee, I wanted to just really commend the town with what a wonderful job it's done in the past. And my hope is that, two things. First is the committee is developing a pollinator pathway GIS in town. So if there are, places where it meets criteria for pollinator habitat, we'd like to get them on the map. And I don't know who to contact for that.
So GIS would be through
Well, I do
the,
GIS.
yeah, okay, right,
I
so,
got that down.
Yeah.
I just need somebody to identify a location that we could then put on the map.
have you worked with Delia? Okay,
Yes, but
okay,
this is, Delia does conservation.
yeah,
And I'm talking about town properties.
okay.
So I'm talking about the housing property.
So why don't you come in and we'll talk and figure out who's the right person to help
Right,
you, okay?
That would be,
Yeah.
that would be good. And the other is that my hope is that as, turf needs to be renewed, we could do native planting seeds rather than turf seeds and reduce the demand, the runoff of water, increase, reduce the mowing and make things more, habitat.
We can have a discussion with Highway Grounds Group, yeah.
Okay,
Thank you.
you do a great job.
Thank you.
David,
Can I make a motion?
please go ahead.
I, David DeLong, hereby make a motion to adjourn this meeting.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Those 6:07.